when you talk about the value that you put in for the $1,800 of direct mail I sent, in full transparency, probably that's what I ended up spending, right? Listen, I know it's a hard pill to swallow, right? It even was for me, and this is me being a flipper, and understanding marketing is important. $1,800 saved me about $98,000.
10 to 15,000.
$500,000 in assignments.
$150,000.
So excited today because we have Matt here. Matt, I'm going to let you kind of intro yourself, tell people a little bit about you and what you do. You've probably heard this guy before with the 203K way. So Matt, go ahead, tell the people where you're at and what you do.
Cool. Yeah, my name is Matt Porcaro. I founded a little community called the 203K way, which essentially is just pulling away the curtain from how to leverage 203K loans to get started in real estate investing. I tried for years to break in. I tried wholesaling. I tried flipping houses with no money. I tried a lot of different avenues, and wasn't until I found this loan called the 203K loan, which is an FHA loan product backed by the government, which allows you to purchase properties as is and allows you to wrap your renovation costs into the mortgage. The beauty of the FHA also is that it only requires 3.5% down. So when you're just starting out and you're really looking for that first property, or even if you're just looking for your next home, it's a great way to basically buy and fix up your dream home for only 3% out of pocket, which is pretty incredible. You don't have to pay for the renovation cost out of pocket. You wrap it into the mortgage. Also, another cool thing about the FHA is that it allows you to buy up to a 4-unit property. So on my first deal, I actually bought a duplex, picked it up for $270,000. It was a complete crack house here in New York. It was really bad. It was the ugliest house pretty much in New York, but it was pretty much the only thing I could afford. Everyone else wanted to stay away from it. But what was great was the 203K allows you to purchase those properties because they know that you're going to purchase it and renovate it, right? So you purchased, so we picked it up. I picked it up for $270,000. The renovation was about $80,000. So I was all in for about $350K. When I was done with the renovation, it reappraised for $480,000 8 months later. So built $130,000 in equity and lived in one unit, rented out the other. So was living for free as well. So I house hacked it for that first year while I lived there. Since moved out of the property, obviously. And, now that property cash flows me $2,000-$3,000 a month. And the equity's grown, grown probably double in the last couple of years. But the best thing about it was that it was only $9,500. That's all I needed to come out with out of pocket to get all those benefits. And ultimately, it really slingshotted me into my real estate investing career. So great loan product, a little complicated, but the reality is that if you really want to slingshot yourself into real estate investing and you're just starting out, it is hands down the best form of leverage out there to get started.
So how many years ago was that you did the house hacking?
So this was back in 2016, 2017. So I purchased it. Here in Long Island, New York. So I know people don't want to believe it, but the market was competitive back then too. Like it wasn't like I still had to place tons of offers to find this thing, right? Most houses I couldn't even afford, right? So I picked it up and it was something that I knew it wasn't going to be my forever home. I always had a goal to get something and get started. I had then just gotten engaged and then we got married. So, I was only really kind of living there for a year, and which is the FHA guideline. You only really need to be there for a year. You have to occupy it. It needs to be your primary residence, right? That's the caveat. That's why they give you the very low down payment. Your low interest rate, right? It's better than getting a hard money loan or a DSCR loan or something like that, right? Then that's the trade-off, right? So again, when you're starting out, you want to house hack, you live for free for a couple of years, you build some equity, you take that equity like I did. I took the equity that I built, I took a portion of that and went and flipped the house 6 months later. And that's what I was doing for a couple of years, was flipping. So yeah, really, it's just a great way to start. But yeah, back then, got that started, and that really just launched me into my real estate investing career. And now that's, what I've been focusing on for the last couple of years.
And if you guys haven't checked out, Matt has also just done a live with us yesterday.
Yeah.
So you can check out a whole bunch of questions I personally asked as well, but I do want to go into this story, your Deal Machine success story, because it's happened and it's here.
Sure.
And
It's official.
so
Yep.
go into kind of just tell us start to finish, like what this process was to getting this deal.
Sure. So, crazy thing was, being a real estate investor the last couple of years, flipping, a handful of houses and having my own rentals and everything like that. Since I started in real estate, I have never bought my own house for myself, really, for my family, right? We were living in New York City, in a high rise. It was nice. It was cushy. It was great. We loved it. Had a view of the city, the whole nine. But we just had a baby last year, and it was time to move into the suburbs and get our own house. Now, like everybody else that had been trying to buy a house in the last 2 years, we also saw what happened with the real estate market, right? It got very competitive. Everything exploded in every market. So when me and my wife went and started looking for houses, we're realizing like, dang, it's tough to find something, especially in the market we were looking in. I mean, it was an extremely, extremely competitive market, very hard to get into. Long Island, New York, high cost of living, a lot of competition. You're dealing with people from the city, international money. Just listen, everywhere is competitive, right? No, nobody's anywhere competitive. The whole idea, everyone thinks their market's the most competitive market. The reality is every market's competitive, right? If there's no market where you could just go in and just buy deal after deal after deal after deal, right? We know this, right? So the whole idea was like, we were looking for something that would be a fixer upper, right? At the end of the day, I practice what I preach. I believe in using renovation loans to build equity, force equity into your property and create wealth, create generational wealth, add to your net worth, right? I don't believe in, we were talking a little bit before this, but could me and my wife have gone and bought out a move-in ready house? Sure, but I don't believe in that. I feel like I would consider myself a fraud if I was like teaching everybody to buy houses using renovation loans, but then I'm just going to go move into a move-in ready house. I just don't believe in that, right? I believe in value add investing. That's how I play this game. So lo and behold, we're going through the motions and like, man, just like everybody else, we're getting beat out left and right, playing the realtor game, getting, placing our offer in. They'll be like, oh, that's funny. We have 5 other offers, $50,000 over asking, cash, all cash. And it got frustrating, right? As many people would. And I mean, there was one house actually not far from here. We're standing online. This is obviously during the pandemic days and everything like that. And we're standing online for the open house. It's raining. We have my newborn baby. It's cold. We're standing outside on a line for a house we didn't even really like, just to be told that there's already 10 offers on it and they're just still showing the house for backup offers. And we're standing out there and it's like rainy, cold. I'm stressed. I'm pissed. And I'm just like, I hate to admit it, but I think to myself, I'm like, Matt, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you sitting on this line like every other Tom, Dick, and Harry that's trying to play the old school game? You have the keys. You know exactly what you need to do. You can go off market. You could deal directly with seller. You've done it in the past on your flips, on your holds. Why would you not do that for your own house? And I'm ashamed to admit it took me probably a year or something to really kind of to actually put it into action. But sure enough, like I'm like, what am I doing now? Obviously, it was a little tougher to get my wife on board with it, just because like you've almost fall into that like HGTV mode of like you go in and like you default back into what and like what's like considered the norm. But I'm like, I know what I need to do. I know what I can do, and sure enough. I told my wife, I'm like, listen, let's drive these neighborhoods. We know we're looking for fixer uppers. We know exactly what type of properties we want. We want, capes or ranches or colonial style houses. We know exactly what neighborhoods we want to be in. It won't take us long to drive all these neighborhoods and use DealMachine to quickly record all the addresses. So we started doing it. And we really, like, as I said, we're looking in like a 2-mile square radius. Like there wasn't much. We're looking at very, very specific neighborhoods. And it took us maybe a couple Saturday afternoons, and it actually was really fun. Like I really enjoyed doing that. Like me and my wife just going through, it was cool. Like driving the neighborhood, seeing like potentially where we want to live. Just be like, all right, we weren't looking for, this is, it's an A-class neighborhood, right? So we were just looking for anything that just looked maybe a little dated, right? Little out of place on the block. You get a nice block of nice houses. It's like, what's a little dated? Maybe there's older people living there. Maybe it's a rental. Who knows, right? So we went through and we just tapped anything, and also like fit our criteria in the terms of times, like what type of house we wanted, right? So we went around, we accumulated about, I think it was about 100 to 150 properties that we pulled after driving the neighborhoods, which doesn't sound like much, but the beauty of it was that it was almost so good to know that me and my wife had eyes on exactly which these houses were, right? So we know confidently that even though this is a very small niche list, it's a very niche list and it's very deep, right? We know exactly everything about these houses. We know where they are, what streets they're on, what neighborhoods they're in. So, so what we ended up doing was like, okay, now we're going to start mailing to them. So what we did was, we took it upon ourselves to use the ballpoint mailers, right? Again, this is a very niche list. So we got the handwritten letters, that you have up on DealMachine, and we put them in, but our messaging was just a little different, right? It wasn't, hey, we're cash investors, we can close in 30 days, blah, 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 blah. It was very more straightforward and personal. It was, hey, me and my wife just had our first baby. We're growing out of our apartment. We are looking forward to move back to Massapequa, which is where we moved to. We really like your house. We were wondering if you'd be willing to take a private offer on it. We'll make it as simple for you as possible. If you have any interest in selling, send me a text or give me a call. So we started doing that. Now, as this is happening, I'll be honest, we didn't go all in on it. Okay. So, again, like getting the buy-in from my wife, understandably, was a little tough. We just felt like we still were going to probably find something from the MLS. Right.
Okay.
Excuse me. And what was happening was like, and I was talking about this, if anybody's watching this, I did a live yesterday with Matt from your team. And one of the things was like, we would send out a mailing, we'd maybe get a little calls, and then we'd fall in love with another house we saw in the MLS, right? Or like be like, go after it. So then we would kind of just hold, and I wouldn't send another mailing. I didn't do any cold calling. I didn't do anything. I would just kind of put everything on hold. I wouldn't follow up. And it's just like, okay, we're looking at this house. We place our offer. We wait. We find out we didn't get it. Then we're waiting around. It's like, oh, should I do another mailing again? Then another one would pop up, right? So as we're doing this, like I didn't go all in on it. And that was probably the biggest mistake I made from the beginning, was I should have went all in on off market from the beginning. There's a lot of houses, believe it or not, that we had on our DealMachine list, on our driving for dollars list that, it's funny to call it driving for dollars. I'll call it driving for dream homes, right? So we drove for the house. Yeah. And so like, we were driving for our dream home. So what was funny on our driving for dream home list was that there was houses that we drove for that I didn't mail again, that we saw got listed on the MLS. So these are literally houses that were like ready to sell. I just didn't hit them enough, right? Like these were people, like if I just committed more to the marketing, I easily could have locked up, right? But I didn't, because I was pussyfooting around it, right? So I went to, I'm in another mastermind group, a higher level mastermind group. A mentor of mine, Kent Clothier, if anyone's, I'm sure, has heard of him. He's huge in the space, and I'm lucky enough to call him one of my mentors. We went to this big meeting, and I mean, he basically just called me a bitch in front of everybody and said, you need to go. Yeah, he's like, you're not going hard enough. And he said it in front of like 100 people at this mastermind group. So he said, by the next meeting, you better have a deal. And listen, it's not even like you better have a deal for me. It's like, prove it to yourself that you could do it. So I went home. I went all out. I sent out way more mail, and I just did it. And sure enough, that was probably about the third time that I sent the mailing out. Had a tremendous response rate. Again, we drove for the list. We knew exactly who it was. We probably had like a 5 to 10% response rate. Okay. So if you're watching this, you've ever done direct mail, that's like ludicrous. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason being is we're going for our own house, right? So it's a little different, but we knew we still were able to bring value. So sure enough, we had a high amount of responses. They were mostly positive. There was maybe 2 people or 3 people that like thought that I was actually like faking it, that I actually wasn't doing that, and I was actually a flipper that was going to buy their house and just knock it down and was using this soppy family story. I actually talked all those people off the ledge and I convinced them that I was doing it. Ironically, one lady that lives down the block on this exact same block thought I was a guy that was actually being dishonest and thought I was just going to be a flipper. She walks by right after we bought the house. I was loading stuff into the dumpster and she's like, "Oh, welcome to the neighborhood." And I was like, "Yeah, me and my wife." She's like, "Where are you from?" And I said, "From Long Island City." She's like, "Were you the guy that sent me the mail?" I said, "Yeah, that was me,
Stop it.
probably." She's like, "And I thought you were kidding." I was like, or she's like, "I thought you were lying. I thought you weren't going to move." I was like, "Here I am." So it was really funny because she was one like, and it was kind of like, it's almost nice. It kind of felt good. It was like, see, I wasn't lying. Like I wasn't making this up. I'm actually not a phony.
And now
So
I'm your
uh,
neighbor.
Exactly. And now I'm your neighbor. She's a very nice lady. So it's, it worked out. But so very positive response rate. And I would say 5 people were ready to like looking to sell or had some motivation to sell. 3 of the properties we looked at that we liked. And the one we're sitting in right now, we landed on. So what happened with this one was we sent the mail. They opened the mail. Again, timing is everything, right? Getting consistency. I had mailed this place 2 times prior, right? Earlier in the year. This mail hit. Lady opened up. Older woman. She, lost her husband last year and moving out into a retirement home or into assisted living, right? She was just about to list it. She didn't talk to the realtor yet, or she spoke to the realtor, but they didn't put it on the market just yet. She's like, "Hey, listen, we were just about to move. I'm about to move in a week. We're about to
Oh,
list
wow.
it, but come check it out if you haven't yet." With the rapport building, we got to know, like, we actually know we happen to know the neighbors through mutual friends. They knew these people, just were building rapport, trying to find common ground. We knew the neighborhood and everything like that. Built rapport with them, kind of came in, had great conversations, looked at the house. Me and my wife ended up loving it. And we're like, "Yeah, we want to give you an offer." So we ended up talking with the kids. Kids live out of state. They're, older and well established, and they wanted to sell their mom's house, and, it's in a trust. And, I said, "Listen, what I bring to the table using a renovation loan, right? Which what we're using it for our own house, right? Same things you can say if you're a wholesaler or a cash buyer, right? Listen, we'll take it as is. Don't worry about inspection. Don't worry about any repairing anything. It's an older house. It's well maintained, but older house. They're worried. Don't worry about inspection. Don't worry about if anything's wrong. We'll take care of it. Barring anything crazy." I said, "We're still going to walk in and make sure, foundation's not crumbling, but, little onesie twosies, electrical issues with the boiler, whatever. That no problem. There's a lot of stuff in the house. They built this house in 1957. They were the original owners. They bought the land and built the house." And I said, "They had a lot of stuff in here, right?" And she was going into, assisted living. She's only got so much room. It's a decent sized house. I said, "Listen, take what you want, leave what you don't. Don't touch. Don't worry about cleaning it, staging it, nothing." Obviously the kids love that. Everyone loved that. They loved that there was a good transaction there. And we said to them, "Listen, we want to make this our own. We want to make this our house. And we want to make it as easy for you as possible." So I know what they could have listed it for. And quite honestly, we offered them quite a bit below that, because we said, "Listen, you're not going to have to pay realtor commissions," right? So even, and if you did, you would land back lower anyway. Plus, the realtors were asking them to clean the place, stage it, put stuff in storage. It was going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars between all that stuff. So I made the offer. I said, "Listen, we're going to do all these things, and that we're going to be able to close quick and take it off your hands." Lo and behold, we made a deal with them, and we picked it up for pretty much about 100,000 under what they easily could have gotten for it on the MLS. So it's when you talk about the value that you put in for the $1,800 of direct mail I sent, in full transparency, probably that's what I ended up spending, right? Listen, I know it's a hard pill to swallow, right? It even was for me, and this is me being a flipper, and understanding marketing is important. $1,800 saved me about $98,000. Okay. So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, I would do that any day of the week. And this is for our own house that we picked, that we knew we wanted, and we went directly to the seller and got it from them. And we're 100K in equity before even starting our renovation. So we have renovation hasn't really started yet, as you can kind of see behind me. It's a little bit of a mess. We're in the process of it, but ultimately that's how I found it. But it all started with driving the neighborhood. Driving for dream homes, we'll call it. We'll start coining that, right? You
Yeah, I
don't
love that.
you don't need to depend. Like I had two options, right? Option one was to continue to wait and see what the MLS was giving us, which wasn't much. We were looking for a year and a half, almost 2 years, to no avail. Option two is pave my own destiny and do the things that I, do what I've always done, which is just make my own luck and just make it happen and just not sit and wait idly for the market and just getting frustrated over and over and over and over again. You don't need to do that, right? You can be a little proactive, a little aggressive with your finding. And the beauty of it is, like, I had a lot of really great conversations with a lot of these homeowners, and, going direct to them is, obviously you got to be comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, like, just having the conversation with the seller, being able to find out what's important to them. What was important to these sellers was that they didn't really want to deal with having to clean it. They didn't want to have to deal with, like, man, we'd have to make repairs. Like, nobody's living here. Like, like, it was, the house was vacant after she moved out. So, like, they didn't, they live far away. They didn't want to have to deal with it. And they were willing to, sell it to a family, know it was going to a good home and, like, everything like that. And willing to, they knew what they could have gotten for the property. They weren't, they weren't against that. And I knew that. And I was telling them they could. But again, the value that I was bringing, or hope that I was bringing to them, was that, listen, don't worry about anything. We will take this off your hands. We will close quickly. The whole, fear sometimes is like, oh, renovation loans take too long to close. We were clear to close in 40 days. Okay. That's
Oh, wow.
faster than some cash I've seen. Okay. So at the end of the day, like, when you have your ducks in a row, which is obviously what I teach to people in my community or anything like that, you can close just as fast as anything else. So we were able to close fast, take it as is, all the good things that you're usually able to do with cash and stuff, but we were able to do it for our own home. So I know I've been rambling for a while, but hopefully this is all good stuff. And if you have any
No, no,
questions, I
this
want to
is,
hear from it. But
they're so good. That's amazing. And I of course have questions. But when it comes to your house, then, so when did you guys, I guess, what is, I'm trying to figure out how to word this correctly.
Hmm?
I know in your live yesterday, you talked about how, like, the 203K loan consultant will give you, like, a scope of work that you can then just hand off to a contractor, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
So the super high level, just for everybody listening. So pretty much the way the process works is, you purchase the house, or you put the offer in on the house, right? So let's say, for example, you're buying a house for, using easy numbers, just for the sake of easy numbers. Say you're buying a house for 50,000. Okay. You get into contract to buy the house for $50,000. What you then do is you put together a scope of work with someone called a 203K consultant. Okay. Or in my case, we're talking about the home style loan. Home style loan is just another version of the 203K loan. It's usually better for single family. It's another discussion, but you don't have to know much more about it. But it's the same exact process, right? So the 203K, a person comes in, they're basically a draw or renovation specialist. They come in, they're usually a 203K consultant. They come in and they help you, and they go over it. They inspect the property. They see what needs to be done to get it up to code and compliance. And then they ask you, okay, what would you like to do? Right. And then you tell them this, that, and the other thing. Then what they do is they put together something called a feasibility study. Feasibility study tells you, like, listen, here's what needs to be done to the house. Here's what you'd like to do to the house. Here's your budget. roughly. They give you a rough estimate on what they think it's going to cost. And here's if it's feasible based on what your budget is, right? Now, your budget is effectively limited by what your max approval is. So if, again, using the easy example, if you're approved for 150,000 and you're picking up a house for 50,000, you have $100,000 of wiggle room for renovation costs. Okay, so if you get approved for 200,000, then you have 150,000 in room for renovation costs. So everything up into that, you have to fit in the purchase price of the house, the cost of the house needs to be in there, and then the renovation budget needs to be in there. Now, getting back to what you said, once you create that scope of work, then you can go and shop it out to contractors. That's the way I do it. That's the way I think everybody should do it, because at the end of the day, you should always get multiple bids from contractors. It's just, I've been in construction for years. That's how you do it, right? If you have a really good relationship with contractors like I do, now it's like, okay, which contractor you're going to use and you get them in, and that's fine. And you could, if you could trust your contractor, they could come in and create that scope of work with you. But that 203K consultant will assist in that process as well.
So going into kind of moving into the renovation process, my question for people who haven't done renovations before, who are looking to do this, and I think this is also for flippers in general, what does it look like right now with the supply chain and like with, supplies?
Sure. So it's a great question, right? And it you see a lot of things. If you watch the news, you hear one thing, and then when you're actually in the trenches, you see other things. So there's a couple things that we're dealing with right now. I'd say number one, obviously, supply chain is an issue. However, I think it's an issue. It's very specific. So overall, there's plenty of flooring out there. There's wood out. Wood's back to where it was. Basically, lumber was back to where it was. A lot of things are back to where it was. Now, if you want I'm making like being facetious here, but Corinthian leather marble from what I mean, like from Italy and stuff like that, and they can't get, but like if you're very specific with your desires and your needs, yeah, like you'll find, if you want a very specific window and you want that window and you're not going to cave on that window, yeah, you're waiting 12 weeks or 18 weeks for your windows, right? Like me and my wife bought a bedroom set for my son. We really like this bedroom set. They're like, hey, but we have it in brown. Do you want it in brown? We're like, no, we want it in this black, dark blue color. They're like, but we have brown. We want the blue. So to wait for the blue, it's going to take 12 weeks. So for the bedroom set for my son. So if you're very specific, yes, you're like, listen, expect to wait for things. Now, in terms of if you're not picky, now listen, if you're a flipper, I mean, please God, don't be picky, because I mean, that will slow you down more than anything. I mean, I'm almost too, my issue always when with my flips was like, I don't have an eye for anything. Like I am like anti HGTV. I'm like a full on capitalist. I'm like, floors, walls, like what more do you need? Like you don't need countertops. Like just freaking throw plywood on top. Like I don't see beauty. Like I don't see beauty in like and stuff. That's really where I struggle. So I like hire people to help me with design because I have no design taste whatsoever. But at the end of the day, like you pick your finishes, pick what's available. Like, because there is plenty of stuff available. It's just you just have to not be picky, right? Some of the guys in my group, right? The guys that that I work with and I mentor, like they, I tell them that all the time. I'm like, listen. And also a lot of the guys that are doing this, they know that this isn't going to be their forever home either, right? They're buying a multifamily. This is something they're going to house hack for a couple of years and then go repeat the process and eventually get to their forever home, right? So the whole idea is like, pick like solid finishes that are available. Look for stuff at Floor and Decor that's on sale. Look for, don't go for the vanity that has a 12-week lead time. Go for the vanity that's in the store, right? Go for that little stuff, and that'll be fine in terms of the material side. Labor has been an issue too. So sometimes what you're paying for as well is just the fact that a lot of these guys are backed up, or they're too busy, or it's hard for them to get labor. Again, the whole idea is like, go with what's available, right? At the end of the day, I think one of the things that people misunderstand about renovation and flipping and contractors, everything in general, is like contractors are like any other like any other technician or any other professional out there, right? 80% of them are probably not going to be that great. It's the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the contractors in an area are doing 80% of the volume in the area, right? So you're constantly sourcing. Okay. You're always sourcing contractors. I can't tell you how many times my dad's a general contractor for years. I worked in the business for years. You can't tell you how many times we work with a contractor. We have a subcontractor. We have a great relationship with them. They're dependable, blah, blah, blah. Overnight, they screw you on one job and then they're never seen or heard from again. Now you were just depending on this one contractor. Now you have to go back to the drawing board and find a new electrician, find a new plumber. You always need to have relationships with contractors, subcontractors, all that. You need to be, there's like anything else, the same way when you're an investor, you have relationships with multiple realtors. You don't work with just one. You work with as many as you can. You want to expand your network. So as long as you're, like I tell people in the beginning, like when you're first starting to think that you're going to do a renovation, you're using a 203K loan, start looking for your contractors now. Ask friends and family, make a post on Facebook, go into the local community groups. Hey, does anybody have contractors they recommend that have done renovations on their house that they really like? I mean, Facebook's great for that stuff, right? So just start building a list. So now when the time comes, you can call down that list. Now you have a ton, instead of what a big mistake people make on these loans is they get into something, then they start looking for contractors. Wrong time to do it, right? You want to get that stuff ahead of time. So hopefully it gives some clarity on things to do. But I really just think that, again, you just treat it like a business, right? Where people really screw up on this process is they treat it just like willy-nilly, that everything's going to fall into place on its own. It's not. You have to drive the ship. And if you're not keeping tabs on everything from the get-go, it'll blow up in your face. It will. But that's with anything in life, right? You have to have a little bit of a plan, right?
Oh yeah. No, and I totally didn't even think about the labor shortage as well. And so
Yeah.
what is it I don't want to keep you for forever. I just want to know how long, so what does it look like right now for you guys for the house? Like are you guys I guess what does the timeline look like?
So we're in the lovely, lovely state of New York where everything's a breeze and everything's super simple to do and everything's really, really cheap, right? Yeah. So we're in Long Island, New York. So we're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy and just like things are slow, right? We got the house. We're having plans drawn up. We're doing some extension. We're doing a dormer off the back. We're doing pretty extensive work on it. So because of that, we need to get plans done. So the plans are being worked on, maybe not as fast as I would like them to be worked on, but they're getting done. They're going to have to submit them for permits. That will take whatever the government decides to do that day. The local government, they'll throw a dart at the dartboard and see if they decide to want to get this through. This is just the reality of the game. People deal with it everywhere. I can't complain about it because everybody deals with it in New York. It's just part of the game, right? You got to factor that in. So we're waiting for that. Once that happens, we'll be hot and heavy in the renovation, and then hopefully be finishing up probably sometime in the spring or sometime in the spring, right? So yeah, I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, at the 203K way, I will definitely be keeping everybody abreast. It's going to be my own really probably wacky version of an HGTV show, with a lot less rainbows and butterflies and probably a
I
lot.
was just about to
Yeah, no,
say
it's be very
so
very blunt and to the point on exactly what this process looks like, and not the cushy rainbows and butterflies that are on HGTV. In terms of how
good.
these
It's
go.
going to be raw and it's going to be real. That's what we want.
Exactly. That's all I've ever been able to do with people. One of the reasons I started the 203K way was because I just wanted to let people know how it really is. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this stuff is easy. I'm just going to tell you that it's worth it. That's all I'll be honest with you with, right? Like, it's not easy. If you're looking for easy plus getting to be a real estate investor, I'm sorry, it's not your game. Like, you're not going to find it unless you hit the lotto and you have $100 million and you can give it to an asset manager to do it for you. Sure. Unfortunately, listen, if you're making $100 million and you're watching me, I'm super flattered. But at the end of the day, like, if you're starting out, you got to put the legwork in. But
Right.
the 203K, in my opinion, is is the most attainable way for people to really give themselves a jump start, getting going, using these renovation loans, using the bank's money with only putting, think about how much power they give you. They give you the ability to buy a house plus do all the renovations on it. And all they ask is 3% from you. 3%.
Yeah.
That's it. Of the whole project, 3%. That's all they're asking for. That's wild. When you think about what they're giving you for what they're giving you for what you're giving them in return, it's crazy, right? So when you look at it from that mindset, just know, like, take advantage of it. Like, take advantage of that, use that as leverage to just get yourself started. And then once you have some of that equity, once you have like also the experience of doing a reno project, you repeat the process. You just keep rolling it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right, I don't want to monopolize your time, but also you already started to plug it, but where can people connect with you, follow you, get in touch with you, things like that?
My Instagram's the best place. It's always where I hang out. I'm always posting, and now I'm making reels and TikToks and
that are great.
Yeah, I know the things I do for the community, right? Yeah. So everywhere I hang out on Instagram. You could go at the 203K way on Instagram. You could even just type in 203K in Instagram. I should be the first one that pops up. I have a lot of imposters on there, so just be careful. It's at the 203K way, not at the .203K way. Or anyway, find me on there. Listen, I have a lot of resources on there. I have a link tree on there. You could, there's all kinds of free content and free books and guides and everything I include there. If you're like listening to this and you're like, hell, I really want to take advantage of this, I want to jump on top of this, send me a DM, say, hey Matt, how can I get started? Let me know, and I'll tell you, what's working for us, what the process is to really streamline it for you. But yeah, I'm an open book. I answer all my DMs, every single one, so don't be afraid to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure.